Hi everyone! Today I will be talking about my senior thesis, research I have been conducting with my advisor, Dr. Melissa Hunt, since my junior year. My research focuses on ethical decision-making in clinical psychology. As you'll see shortly, the field of evidence-based ethics in psychology is sparse to non-existent, so we are hoping that our research is the start of a new field. When it comes to ethical decision-making in clinical psychology, there are countless frameworks that have been proposed to work through an ethical dilemma. Pictured here is just a sample of the texts commonly referenced in the field. But what is equal parts concerning and intriguing is that none of these models have ever been empirically tested to verify their effectiveness. This means that we don't really know if any of the proposed frameworks actually help psychologists make better decisions when faced with an ethical dilemma. An example framework step comes from a model proposed by the Center for Ethical Practice. As you can see, the instructions are pretty sparse. Make a decision, decide how to carry it out, and carry it out. It's difficult to see how a psychologist in a serious ethical dilemma could tangibly apply this framework. In addition, the American Psychological Association, or the APA, endorses a code of ethics that is relied upon by psychologists in their practice. However, many argue that the ethics code is not written intuitively or naturally. For example, a common dilemma faced by psychologists is the issue of multiple relationships. But where does this concept actually appear in the code? Pictured here are the 10 main subsections of ethical principles in the code. Multiple relationships appears in sections 3, 7, 8, and 10. This is just one example of how commonly referenced ethical concepts are not consolidated in one area of the code. Our first step of the research was to understand how psychologists think intuitively about ethical principles. To do this, we asked professional psychologists to report the ethical principles that came to their minds without referencing the APA ethics code. We predicted that their reported principles would differ from the structure of the APA ethics code. The results supported our hypothesis, pictured in this frequency table. Some of the most frequently reported principles, such as informed consent and multiple relationships, do not appear as standalone sections of the APA ethics code. We now set out to resolve these gaps with an empirically backed decision-making tool. An effective tool, we believed, should have the following 3 characteristics. It should be interactive. Rather than reading about vague potential actions, a user should be able to engage with the details of their situation. The tool should be comprehensive, containing a clear step-by-step process with all necessary resources built in. Finally, the tool should also serve as documentation. A user should be able to download their responses for record-keeping purposes. With these 3 items in mind, we created a solution, a novel ethical decision-making tool incorporating the entire decision-making process from start to finish. The next step was to test our tool. We wanted to prove whether or not such a framework would actually help psychologists make more informed ethical decisions. We decided to test how well psychologists performed on working through a given ethical scenario. Our study design incorporated 3 conditions. The control condition did not provide any resources. The 2 experimental conditions used 2 different versions of the tool. The first version incorporated the ethical principles directly from the APA ethics code. The second version incorporated a set of intuitive ethical principles derived from our previous study. As you can see, both experimental conditions walk the user through the entire decision-making process, from identifying which parties are at stake to considering all possible potential outcomes of a decision. To assess performance, we developed the following hypothetical vignette that would be provided in all 3 conditions. You have been working with a 24-year-old single Guatemalan woman by birth, who was adopted at age 5 along with several other children by a fundamentalist Christian couple who were doing mission work. She works in a stable but low-paid service sector job, cleaning rooms in a hotel. She is seeking treatment for depression and anxiety and feeling stuck in her low-skill job. You agree to see her for a greatly reduced fee as part of your commitment to pro bono work. In the 3rd session, she arrives visibly agitated and tells you that she is feeling hopeless and acutely suicidal. With gentle prodding, she reveals that she was pressured into having sex by a white male manager at the hotel and has just discovered that she is pregnant. She is feeling overwhelmed and distraught and says several times, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I want to die. I want to kill him." She has also not returned to work since finding out that she was pregnant and is running low enough on money that she cannot afford even your reduced fee. In the control condition, the participant would simply be asked to report which ethical principles were at stake and what course of action they would follow. In the APA code condition, participants would work with the ethical principles directly from the APA ethics code. Pictured here is section 1, resolving ethical issues. In the intuitive code condition, participants would work with the set of intuitive principles in more natural language. Pictured here is an example, informed consent. We recruited a wide range of participants, from undergraduates to graduate students to highly experienced professional psychologists. The participants were randomly assigned to one of the 3 conditions. To quantify performance, we created an original scoring rubric that would encapsulate the key points that should have been addressed by respondents. The rubric contains 7 categories: informed consent, suicide risk, sexual harassment, pregnancy, multicultural values, homicide risk, and billing. There are 20 possible points total. The rubric was reviewed by members of the Ethics Committee of the Pennsylvania Psychological Association. We scored all responses with very high inter-rater reliability. Do participants using an ethical decision-making tool actually think through an ethical dilemma more thoroughly and accurately? Our initial results revealed that this was the case. We combined both of the experimental conditions into one category. Compared with the control condition, people using a tool performed significantly better. In fact, their average score was almost double of those in the control condition. Then we looked at all 3 conditions separately to see if there were differences between our 2 experimental conditions. Again, the answer was yes, there were differences. The control participants remained the lowest performing. However, people using our intuitive ethics code scored significantly higher than those using the standard APA ethics code. Our dataset included both undergraduate students and psychologists and graduate students at higher levels. In this graph, we can see that both higher level professionals and undergraduate students perform significantly better when using a tool. Why is this important? We were able to show that even an untrained undergraduate student with no clinical experience can make more informed, complex ethical decisions if they are provided with a comprehensive resource. This speaks to the effect our tool could have in helping psychologists at all training levels. In conclusion, our study is the first of its kind that looks at the empirical validity of ethical decision-making frameworks in clinical psychology. We have evidence showing that the APA ethics code may not be written in an effective, helpful format, and that the use of a comprehensive decision-making tool significantly improves decision-making ability. Looking forward, we are going to continue the process of data collection to further verify that our tool really does work. We anticipate that our tool could be a useful teaching tool for those in clinical training, as well as for professional psychologists in their day-to-day practice. We hope to make this tool publicly available in the future. Thank you so much for listening to my Ben Talk. Please feel free to reach out to me with any other questions or concerns.